Title: The Uninvited Guests. The night was thick with silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant hum of passing cars. Amber's heart raced as she sat alone in her dimly lit living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting eerie shadows on the walls. Her husband, Michael, was away on a business trip, leaving her to fend for herself in their secluded suburban home. Amber tried to shake off her unease as she flipped through the pages of her book, but a nagging sense of dread lingered in the air. It was past midnight when she heard it, a faint creaking noise coming from the direction of the front door. Her breath caught in her throat as she strained to listen, hoping it was just her imagination. But then she heard it again, louder this time, a distinct scraping sound, like metal against wood. Panic surged through her veins as she realized someone was trying to force their way into her home. She reached for her phone, fingers trembling, but her hands froze as she heard the unmistakable sound of the lock clicking open. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as the door swung open, revealing the silhouette of a figure standing in the doorway. Amber's heart pounded in her chest as she scrambled to her feet, her mind racing with fear and adrenaline. She needed to hide, to call for help, but her limbs felt leaden, paralyzed by terror. The intruder stepped into the room, his features obscured by the darkness. Amber's throat constricted as she tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. She backed away, her eyes fixed on the stranger as he moved closer, his movements slow and deliberate. But then, to her astonishment, the figure spoke, a voice soft and soothing, filled with unexpected warmth. "Amber, it's me," the voice said, and as the intruder stepped into the light, she saw his face, familiar and beloved. It was her neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, his gentle eyes filled with concern. "I heard noises coming from your house, and I wanted to make sure you were all right," he explained, his voice tinged with empathy. Relief flooded through Amber as she realized she had misjudged the situation. She had been so consumed by fear that she hadn't recognized her neighbor's intentions. She thanked him profusely, her hands still trembling with residual adrenaline. Mr. Jenkins smiled kindly, assuring her that everything was okay now. He stayed with her until she felt safe again, offering words of comfort and reassurance. As the night wore on, Amber's fear gradually subsided, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude for her neighbor's kindness. In the midst of her darkest hour, he had been her beacon of light, a reminder that goodness still existed in the world. In the days that followed, Amber made a point of getting to know her neighbors better, forging connections that she had previously overlooked. She discovered that Mr. Jenkins had lived in the neighborhood for decades, his quiet kindness touching the lives of everyone around him. With each passing day, Amber's sense of security grew stronger, bolstered by the knowledge that she was surrounded by caring neighbors who looked out for one another. The memory of that fateful night lingered in her mind, a testament to the power of compassion in the face of fear. And so, in the end, what had begun as a night of terror became a story of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are still glimmers of light to guide us home. And for Amber, that light shone brightest in the form of her neighbor's unwavering kindness, a beacon of hope in a world filled with shadows. Title: The Night They Came. The night was dense with silence, broken only by the occasional whisper of the wind. Shadows danced along the walls of the small suburban house as the moon hid behind thick clouds, casting an eerie glow upon the neighborhood. Inside, the Wilson family slept soundly, unaware of the impending terror that lurked just beyond their doorstep. It was nearing midnight when the first figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette blending seamlessly with the night. Clad in dark clothing, they moved with stealthy precision, slipping through the shadows like a ghost. Behind them trailed two others, their footsteps muffled against the dew-kissed grass. The Wilsons' home sat nestled at the end of the street, its windows dark and inviting to those who wished harm. As the intruders approached, a sense of anticipation hung heavy in the air, each breath tinged with the promise of violence. With practiced ease, The intruders bypassed the flimsy lock on the front door, slipping inside without a sound. The house was a maze of shadows and silence, its occupants blissfully unaware of the danger lurking just beyond their bedroom doors. Upstairs, the Wilsons slept soundly, their dreams untouched by the darkness that crept ever closer. But as the intruders ascended the staircase, a sense of dread settled over the house like a suffocating blanket. It was Mrs. Wilson who first sensed the presence of danger, her eyes fluttering open as a chill swept through the room. In the darkness, she could make out the faint outline of a figure standing at the foot of her bed, their features obscured by the shadows. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as Mrs. Wilson's mind raced with fear and uncertainty. But then, with a surge of adrenaline, she sprang into action, her voice ringing out in the darkness as she shouted for her husband. The intruders moved quickly, their intentions clear as they advanced upon the Wilsons with malicious intent. But as they drew closer, a strange sensation washed over them, a feeling of unease that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the house. It was then that Mr. Wilson emerged from the darkness, his presence commanding as he confronted the intruders with a steely resolve. With a swift motion, he lunged forward, his fists a blur as he fought to protect his family from harm. In the chaos that followed, the house erupted into a symphony of violence and desperation, each blow echoing through the darkness like a thunderclap. But despite the odds stacked against them, the Wilsons refused to yield, their courage unwavering in the face of adversity. As the intruders faltered, their resolve crumbling beneath the weight of the Wilsons' defiance, a sense of triumph filled the air. For in that moment, they realized that they were not alone, that the bonds of family were stronger than any force that sought to tear them apart. With one final surge of strength, the Wilsons drove the intruders back, their victory hard won, but undeniable. And as the first light of dawn broke through the darkness, illuminating the wreckage of the night before, they knew that they had emerged victorious, their home a sanctuary against the terrors that lurked just beyond its walls. For in the end, it was not the darkness that prevailed, but the light that shone brightly within the hearts of those who dared to defy it. And as the Wilsons stood together, united in their triumph, they knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, they would face them as a family, their bond unbreakable in the face of adversity.